What's up, gamers? Welcome back to another episode of the Meta Update. My name is Joshua Joshi Howard, and today we're going to be talking about what happened over this last weekend. And as you can probably tell by what I'm expecting the length of this video to be, there's a lot to talk about. This was a very busy weekend. There were three large team tournaments scattered throughout the world, and there were just a lot of GTs. This was the first weekend where we had a real return in force to the number of events that were going on. It was pretty quiet over the course of December, and then last week we were still in like New Year, so there wasn't a ton that was actually happening. But now, basically, everywhere is like, well, it's time to go back to playing 40k. So there's a ton of events. I have nearly 30 lists to show you guys this weekend. Which is a lot. That is a ton. Part of it is because there were so many team events, but there are also several more team events coming up in the next couple of weeks. So kind of expect that there will be a couple fairly long lists. In order to alleviate my own sanity, I've tried to group them up a little bit so I can kind of talk about a couple of different archetypes that we are seeing. Before we get into that, though, let's go ahead and talk about some of our singles stats. So this, of course, is only looking at singles events. Bear in mind that my numbers are going to be a little bit different than other places like on Hutber or on StatCheck. My numbers are going to be a little bit different because I don't care about how many players there are. As long as there's more than like 10 players and they're playing 5 rounds of singles, I'm going to include it. And so that means that there are going to be a couple players that are showing up in here, a couple different numbers here and there. Also, I don't really check outside of BCP. Sorry, French players and anybody else. But if somebody pulls them to my attention, I will go and take a look. It's just that most of the time there's like not that many events that don't happen on BCP, so I don't check as often. Anyway, let's go ahead and talk about it. For this weekend, guard players went 148 wins, 133 losses, and 1 draw for an overall win rate of 52.7%. We had an average ELO of 1574.8 this weekend, which is rather high, and we had a median ELO of 1515. Now, both of these are a little bit interesting because it's not so much that we had like a ton of well-known or like people who have historically been strong guard players. There were definitely some of them, but we also had a lot of people swapping over to the faction, which is kind of a dangerous sign. We'll talk about that more in a bit. 57 of 58 players who were playing singles were on Grizzled. The one that was not was playing Hammer, and they went 1 win and 4 losses. And overall, Grizzled, since it was released, has a 248 wins, 228 losses, and 10 draws for an overall win rate of 52.1%. And I do want to get this out of the way now. We'll have more thoughts on this towards the end of the video. Guard is OP. We are definitely very, very strong. Are we the strongest army in the game? Maybe not, but there's definitely an argument that we are. We are right up there with Victrix Honor Guard Ultramarines. We are right up there with Catan Spam Necrons. But it's kind of like, just like we had during Hot Knight Summer, where we had Imperial Knights and Chaos Knights, and then Death Guard as like the 3 big armies. Guard right now is Death Guard. Imperial Knights and Chaos Knights, who are like Victrix Guard and the new Ultramarines Wardens and Titus and Ultramarines, and then Catan Spam are both like Knights. They play the game in a way that is generally not fun, and you really have to like skew your list and you have to make really annoying decisions before the game even starts in order to try to figure out how to play against them. Whereas Guard is like Death Guard. It's not that our army is necessarily doing anything that is ridiculous or unfair. We are just playing the normal game. We're playing the way that the game is meant to be played, and we do that extraordinarily well. One of the major things that we're obviously seeing is that Combined did a little bit more damage, was a little bit better in vehicle versus vehicle shootouts, but Grizzled makes everything good. There's such a major or there used to be like a major difference between the things that you were playing in Combined and the things that didn't really make the cut. Whereas now you can kind of play whatever you want. And because we are so good at the rest of the game, because we have such consistent damage now, we can get away with a lot of different things. And we'll kind of talk about this. I'm not going to be calling out specific players or anything, but a couple of things that we are seeing is that we are seeing a lot of players swap over to guard who are like known faction swappers, people who are just chasing whatever the strong army is at the time. A lot of these players have guard because they have played guard in the past because guard has been strong in the past, but we're also seeing a lot of people who are not quite as strong doing relatively well. One of the interesting things that I saw this weekend is in singles, again, not in teams. In singles, there was only a single player out of the 58 players who played singles who didn't get a win, and that's because they went 0-2 and then dropped. Every single player for guard, other than that, got at least one win, which is really, really weird. It is very rare that we have a weekend where no guard player goes 0 wins and all losses. So just that consistency is coming through. We're seeing a lot more people going 2-3, 3-2. We're seeing a lot more people just have that consistency that they did not have before, and the people who are already doing very well are now being very oppressive. So I do want to give a lot of guard players who are watching this video the idea that we are very, very powerful right now. Your ability to win games is mostly going to come down to your skill as a player. And you can take a lot of different kinds of lists, as we're going to be talking about this weekend, and they are going to work. So don't, you know, understand that we are very, very good. Understand that we are going to be a bit of a boogeyman for a little while. And it's okay to kind of play the heel a little bit and be like, yeah, I know the army is very strong, but just be very aware that guard is like, we have been very good. Like, at worst, we've been B tier at some point during 10th edition. Now we are objectively S tier. A ton of good players who have been playing other armies for a while are swapping back to guard because of how strong this army really is. With that in mind, let's go ahead and start talking about a couple of the different archetypes of lists. Like I said, I have nearly 30 lists to show you guys. I grouped them up into a couple of different archetypes, and we'll go ahead and work our way through them. So the first archetype I want to show you guys is 2 Dorns and 2 or more Vanquishers. So this has been very common. We're seeing a lot of this as well as a powerful archetype in singles. People like Nick Jiggello were playing it quite a bit. But it's also very powerful in teams just because you put this on an open board, and at that point, it doesn't really have bad matchups as much as it has bad maps. And so in a team's context, when you can just put this kind of army on whatever board you want, you are going to outshoot basically everything in the game, and you will just have a ton of power that way. You have the firepower to deal with almost everything, and you can skew even further into tanks, as we will see in a couple of different versions, but you can also play it but you can also bring just like a lot of stuff to play the board. So the first one I want to show you guys is, of course, Dan Salmons. He is going to be one of our GT winners this weekend, winning our largest singles event at the New Year's Knockout. It was, of course, Grizzle Company being piloted by Dan Salmons. Well-known player. I believe I haven't seen his name pop up as much recently for guard stuff, but he was definitely playing a lot of guard earlier in the edition. And Dan coming out with a Caden Command Squad, Gonskos, Lord Solar, a Rogaldorn Commander, 1 unit of 10 Cadians, 1 unit of 10 Catachan, 1 unit of 10 Death Riders, 1 unit of 10 Rough Riders, 2 units of 5 Death Riders, a Field Ordnance Battery, 1 unit of Aquilons, 3 Vanquishers, 1 Rogaldor Battle Tank, and then 3 Scout Sentinels. So a couple of really interesting decisions here, of course, is the decision to take Lord Solar. I've been seeing there's a lot of ongoing discussion about whether or not Grizzle Company is supposed to take Lord Solar, Ursula Creed, or neither. I've been leaning towards the neither of them simply because if you're used to managing your CP economy, you don't really need it. But Lord Solar here is a way to get that CP economy going, as well as all the squadron orders that you really need. And then you can save a couple of points this way by like not taking the Rogaldorn Commander and potentially taking a Rogaldorn Battle Tank, as we have seen that Dan is going to be doing here. The other major thing that is a really interesting shout is the 3 Scout Sentinels still showing up in the list. A lot of people have been looking at Grizzled, where obviously basically our entire army is rerolling ones kind of no matter what, and the Scout Sentinel is the ability is really secondary. You don't really need to do it. However, it is still a 55-point model that scouts 9, moves 10, or could move 13, and then charges things. You still have a lot of tools that it provides you simply by being fast. Other people in this spot I know would, instead of taking the Scout Sentinels, they would have looked for ways to take 3 units of 5 Rough Riders, or something similar to that, or maybe Krieg Engineers, something that is relatively fast, something that is going to have like utility just by moving around the board quickly and doing stuff that way. But Dan Salmon's coming out. A really interesting thing to note about this is there's no Kazarkin in this list, which is really, really uncommon. Most people are still playing 2 or 3 units of Kazarkin in basically all of their lists, and we'll be showing you a lot of lists like that. Dan Simmons, of course, winning New Year's Knockout, beating Emperor's Children, World Leaders, Black Templars, Yukari, and then Death Guard. I know at least one of these games was on Wargames Live. The finals playing up against Death Guard, where he just kind of killed a lot of Death Guard models very quickly. Beating up several Marines on the way is not a huge surprise. We were already a major predator of Marine armies, and Grizzled Company makes us even better into a lot of those as well. Other interesting choice here is, of course, the Field Ordnance Battery. From the game that I watched that he was playing up against Death Guard, I was not super impressed watching it. I think it probably could have been a unit of Kazarkin, but I only saw the one game of it, and, it seemed fine. It happened to kill, like, a Mephitic Blight Hauler that was on 1 wound at one point. I think that was the most impressive thing I saw it do, but, it's still running around, still goes through, still going to be a GT win, so congratulations to Dan on winning New Year's Knockout. Still in the 2 Dorns and 3 Vanquishers, we have Logan Heath, member of Team USA Academy for the last WTC cycle. I'm not sure if that's still true for this year, but he is playing at the Tennessee Elite Open, one of the 3 major team events that happened this last weekend, where he was playing with the Xenos Petting Zoo. He went 4 wins, no losses, and 1 draw. He had Cadian Command Squad, Lord Solar again, a Commissar with Abhuman Detail, a Scion Command Squad with the Aquilin Eye for the +1 AP order, a second Scion Command Squad, 10 Cadians, 2 units, or 2 Chimeras, 3 units of 5 Rough Riders, 2 units of 3 Ogryn, 2 units of 5 Scions, 3 Vanquishers, and 2 Rogaldorn Battle Tanks. Now, a bit of an interesting shout here, of course, is going to be you still have the same shell, right? The 2 Dorns, 3 Vanquishers, you're going to outshoot most people, but the transition here is we still have a couple units of horses going back and forth between these, and you can kind of see like the horses here kind of replacing the Scout Sentinels in Dan Salmon's list. But the way that Logan is choosing to play the midboard is with Chimeras and Ogryn inside them. I don't remember if they were Flamer Chimeras or Heavy Bolter Chimeras. I feel like they're both okay. But the Commissar with Abhuman Detail giving the Ogryn potentially reroll 1s does mean that they can swing up a little bit more when they're actually like out of the Chimera, but also Chimeras just give you some pretty decent brawling power just across the rest of the board. And then you have the 2 units of Scions in order to run around. You can drop them in the same place, give them both the Aquilin Eye for the extra AP, or you can drop them separately where they are still going to be killing Marines fairly effectively. Just a different way of like playing for the midboard. 10 Rough Riders here can be your rapid ingress threat, whereas here the Scions can be your rapid ingress threat. Despite the fact that there's like not a ton of like overlap in the things you're playing in the midboard, there's still actually a lot of overlap in the way that they are still trying to play the game. Next, we have Chris Daly, another player who is playing at the Tennessee Elite Open. 2 Dorns, 3... Oh, hold on. Before I go into that, Logan, 14-6 into Raven Guard, 13-7 into Sisters, 18-2 into Ultramarines, 17-3 into Votan, and a 10-10 into AdMech. Cool. Next, let's go take a look at Chris Daly, who was at the same event, going 4 wins and 1 loss. Cadian Command Squad, Scion Command Squad, 2 Rogaldorn Commanders, and Ursula Creed, 1 unit of 20 Cadians, 1 unit of 10 Catachan, 1 of 10 Krieg, 2 Chimeras, 3 units of 5 Rough Riders, 1 unit of Kazarkin, 1 unit of 5 Scions, and then 3 Leman Vanquishers. So still very similar thing. Basically the other side of the coin, right? Both Logan and Dan were opting to go with the Lord Solar. Chris Daly has been a big fan of the 20 Cadians. He's actually one of the people that convinced me to try it in my games where you take 20 Cadians, a Cadian Command Squad, and Ursa Creed. You can string them out to go sticky things, and it's a problem that not every army has good answers to. We still have the two Rogaldorn commanders, the three Vanquishers, and the way that Chris is choosing to brawl in the midboard, you still have those 3 units of 5 Rough Riders. Again, kind of like we were saying, they are in a similar spot to the Scout Sentinels, where they're just running around doing things for you. And then the Kazarkin and Chimera, and then Catachan and Chimera, whereas if you looked at Logan's, it was 2 units of 3 Ogren, both in the Chimeras. So, still a lot of relative brawling. One of the advantages that Chris Daly's list has is because you have the two Rogaldorn commanders who can order themselves. They are a bit independent that way, whereas in both Logan and Dan's, if you were to lose Lord Solar, it is way more crushing as compared to Chris Daly's. However, if you can kill the Rogaldorn commanders, then it's a similar thing. So it's just creating who you want to be the locus of your army, and then Ursa Creed, of course, giving you access to those Snap to It and a lot of other important free strats. So similar thing coming out for Chris Daly. Gets an 11-9 into Blood Angels, 20-0 into World Eaters. He had apparently a bit of a mistake into Custodies where he went 0-20, 17-3 into Thousand Suns, and 16-4 into Space Wolves. You'll notice once again we are beating up lots of Marine shapes very, very effectively. Cool. Next we have Jean Masson. I'm probably pronouncing that incorrectly, and I will probably pronounce this event incorrectly. The Grand Croisade Impérialiste. Event over in France, I'm assuming. This sounds very French. But Jean, not a player I'm as familiar with. I'm not as familiar with the French scene in general, but Jean also playing 2 Cadian Command Squads, 1 Commissar with the Abhuman Detail, an Ogren Bodyguard going to be going with one of the Cadian Command Squads to run around and be a Toughness 6 annoying brick, 1 unit of 10 Cadians, which is going to attach to the Cadian Command Squad and the Commissar, 2 Chimeras, 2 units of 10 Rough Riders, 1 unit of 5 Rough Riders, 1 unit of 6 Bullgryn. You do have the option here on whether or not you want to attach the Commissar to the Cadians or to the Bullgryn. Typically, most people have been opting to do it with the Bullgryn, or sorry, with the Cadians as opposed to the Bullgryn, because it's relatively easy to precision them out when they are with the Cadians. 2 units of 10 Kazarkin, only 2 Vanquishers, and then a Rogaldorn Battle Tank. So one of the big changes here that you're seeing is it's only 1 Rogaldorn commander, and then you have the 2 Leman Russ Vanquishers and the Rogaldorn Battle Tank, so you are spreading your orders a little bit thin. You do have the 3 orders on the Rogaldorn Commander, but you now have 4 vehicles that want that order, and then you also have the 2 Chimeras that like the order. They don't need it, but they like it. So you do have like a bit of a small potential issue if you do need to get orders out to everything. It's going to cost you some CP. You don't have the CP generation in this. However, you do have a very strong way to play the board. Because it was in French, I'm assuming it was either on the, I think it's called FEQ, or the WTC, which means that the 10 Rough Riders can play relatively aggressively. You do have plenty of orders coming out from the Cadian Command Squads and the Commissar if you really need it, and then the Kazarkin and Chimeras. So you still have a lot of firepower, but you are a bit more focused on your actual play with the Rough Riders and the Bullgryn and the Kazarkin in order to win you a lot of these midboard brawls as compared to some of the others that we have taken a look at. Jean ended up going 11-9 into Scintillating Legion, 19-1 into some kind of Necrons, 12-8 in a Guard Mirror, 7-13 in a T-Suns game, and 13-7 into Mudcot Tau. So good job overall to Jean, and welcome to the first time, I believe, we've had you on the series. Hopefully it's not the last. Next, we have one of our favorite tank commanders, Nick Jagiello, one of the top Guard players up in Canada, making another repeat appearance, again with 2 Dorns and 2 Vanquishers. This was at the Toronto 5-player teams, and one of the things that Nick was saying is that he really loved being able to tell his captain, I have all greens into everything on the enemy team, and I can play on any board. I can do anything you want me to do, and I'm going to come back with some kind of win. Nick, going 5-0 at this event, had a Cadian Command Squad, Gaunt's Ghost, Lord Solar, 10 Cadians, so of course you attach Lord Solar and the Cadian Command Squad to the 10 Cadians, 1 Chimera, 1 Taurox, 1 unit of 10 Rough Riders, 2 units of 5 Rough Riders, 1 unit of 5 Death Riders, 3 units of Khazarkin, 1 unit of 5 Krieg Engineers, 2 Vanquishers, and 2 Rogaldorn Battle Tanks. So this is leaning even heavier into the I'm going to win the midboard brawl. You don't have the Bullgryn to just fight up against like Marines, but you do have a couple of transports that you can like move your opponent around that way. You do have the Death Riders. You do have a couple units of Rough Riders. Again, kind of in that same slot. We've been seeing a lot of like 5 Rough Riders, 5 Krieg Engineers, Scout Sentinel, and Ogryn all kind of just being kind of in that spot of relatively cheap unit that can kind of do anything, but is not necessarily super great at anything. So a little bit more just like brawling power with the Khazarkin coming through. But still a lot of firepower. Not a lot new to really say about this one. Nick gets a 19-1 into Guard. He gets a 15-5 into Drukhari, being played by Skari. An 18-2 into Shadow Legion, a 19-1 into Dark Angels, and a 14-6 into Votann. So again, you have like a very strong fire base, 2 Dorns, 2 or 3 Vanquishers, and then you have just a lot of ability to brawl for the midboard. 10 Rough Riders, of course, can start off the board or on the board depending on how much threat you are expecting from your opponent at the very beginning of the game. Okay, next, moving over to Europe, we do have a couple of lists from the Nations Cup, Alpine Cup, which is, you know, a lot of national teams are sending some of their prospects, some of their regular or like historical players coming out. One of them coming from Team Italy, who ended up winning the event overall, is Eduardo Rinaldi coming out. And he is also on the 2 Dorns, 2 Vanquishers. He had a Commissar with Abhuman Detail, Gaunt's Ghost, Krieg Command Squad, Rogaldorn Commander, 10 Catachan, 10 Krieg. So that's going to be your opportunity or your choice of the command squad. I'm not as in favor of the Krieg command squad in general. There has been like an ongoing discussion on whether or not Snap to It and Servo Scribes, the ability for the Krieg command squad, actually interacts favorably for us. But so far, I know that several major TOs have ruled that it does not work in our favor. You cannot use the Servo Scribes on Snap to It. And I don't know what the ruling is for WTC or if they have made one yet. But, you know, if it does work, it's pretty cool. It's neat tech. Anyway, 3 units of 5 Rough Riders, 3 units of 6 Bullgryn, 1 unit of 5 Death Riders, 2 Luminous Vanquishers, and a Rogaldorn Battle Tank. Leaning very heavily here into the Bullgryn, so you do have a fair amount of firepower, but we're also running into a similar thing as we were looking at with, not Nick, Jean's list, where you only have the 1 Rogaldorn Commander, and then 3 vehicles that really want that, so you are committing yourself to spending some CP on most turns to snap to it, either one of the Bullgryn or one of your vehicles. I'm not super fond of that, but clearly it's being very successful here. Eduardo going 15-5 into Death Guard, 19-1 into World Eaters, 19-1 into World Eaters a second time, 16-4 into Spectacle of Spite, and a 14-6 into Thousand Suns. So just a lot of brawling. It is very difficult for our opponent to come touch our tanks when there are 18 Bullgryn standing in the way. The one thing that I kind of look at with this list is what is going to go stand on your natural, but when you have 18 Bullgryn, it is not that big of a deal to stand 6 of them on your natural and just say, hey, if you want to come fight me for this, you're either going to get shot back by Vanquishers and Rogaldorns, or you're going to be charging into Bullgryn. Is that really something you want to be doing? Cool. From the same event, we have Patrick Binoki, going 3 wins, 1 loss, and 1 draw. A Cadian Command Squad, Gaunt's Ghost, Lord Solar, 10 Cadians, 1 unit of 20 Catachan, 1 unit of 20 Krieg, a Torox, 2 units of 6 Bullgryn, 1 unit of Khazarkin, 2 Vanquishers, and 2 Battle Tanks. A really interesting thing here to be seeing the unit of 20 Catachan. That's not something I see very often at all. I'm assuming this is 20 Catachan is 120 points, right? I'm assuming. I haven't played a unit of 100 or of 20 Catachan in forever, so I'm actually not sure. I'm assuming it's a way to save like 5 to 10 points instead of taking 2 units of 10 Catachan. But similar thing, don't really have a whole lot new to say about this one. Coming out from Patrick, you do have the 2 units of 6 Bullgryn. Does he really not? Hold on. I am going to check something. Oh, you guys get to see behind. Did I do this one correct? Does he really not have the abhuman detail? Yeah, there's a yeah, okay, interesting. There's actually no commissar in this list coming out from Patrick. So the Bullgryn, that feels wrong to me. But that is that's what it says. That's what the list says. Interesting. Oh, this is combined arms. That's why. Okay, so this is combined arms. Um, yeah. Okay, so having the 20 Krieg here is a really good reinforcements target as well as the Kazarkin. That's why this has looked so weird to me. You still have the two Rogodorans and the two Vanquishers, but you are just relying a lot more on your ability to bully people this way with the 20 Krieg. 20 Catachan is still really interesting to me. It feels like the way to just like create like a wall at the beginning because you can like string them out across your entire deployment zone, scout them 6 inches forward, move them potentially 9 plus advance again, and then you just have this wall that your opponent has to deal with, and then you can like back that up with a 2 into 6 Bullgryn, a lot of firepower from your tanks, but it is a lot of points being spent on like Lord Solar and stuff in this, and it doesn't have some of the same consistency that the Grizzle Company does, but it is a little bit better in shootouts. But then taking the 2 into 6 Bullgryn, they're not the best in the shootout matchups. Interesting. So definitely not the way that I probably would have gone about this from Patrick, but playing with Team Hungry still did decent overall. 3-1-1. Not going to be the Grizzle Company. Actually going to be um, combined. All right. Next, let's go. He gets in the 11-9 into Genestealer Colts, 15-5 into Emperor's Children, 13-7 into Death Guard, 8-12 into Admech, and a 10-10 into Montcalm Tau. All right. We have one more player coming out from the Nations Cup Alpine Cup. It's Florian Sauter. Florian playing for Team Switzerland, and he had a really good event in Germany not that long ago, where I think he beat Niklas Friedchen at that big event. He beat a couple of big German names on his way to winning like a really major event over in Germany. But anyway, Florian goes 2 wins, 2 losses, and 1 draw. So this was not his best event overall, coming out at Nations Cup. But he had a Commissar with Abhuman Detail, Gaunt's Ghosts, a Krieg Command Squad, 2 Rogodorn Commanders, 2 Engine Seers, a unit of 10 Cadians, a unit of 10 Catachan, 1 Chimera, 1 Torox, 2 units of 5 Rough Riders, 5 Krieg Engineers, 1 unit of 3 Ogryn, 2 Hellhounds, and 2 Vanquishers and a Scout Sentinel. Is this also combined arms? Did I do this one wrong? No, this is Grizzle Company. Sorry, guys. I got a lot of lists that I was trying to go through. This is a very, very odd list to me in a couple of ways, right? So the first one is the Commissar with Abhuman Detail is 50 points, right? There's almost a squad of 10 dudes, and the only thing in this army that it can order is a unit of 3 Ogryn, which are 60 points. So by spending 50 points, you can upgrade your 60-point unit, but it's not even like that big of a buff to that unit. I feel like there's probably something better we could have spent the Commissar and the Abhuman Detail on. It's just a lot of points. Then you have the Krieg Command Squad, 2 Rogodorn Commanders, 2 Lemur's Vanquishers, 2 Engine Seers, 2 Hellhounds. So it's a lot of beef coming out. You do have a lot of kind of throwaway vehicles in the Hellhounds and Lemur's Vanquishers, where if you are able to do it correctly and you throw out like the Hellhound or Lemur's Vanquisher early on with that 4-up invul, they're already difficult to remove at T10, T11, 2-up save, but you can make them also have that 4-up invul. So they become like not just difficult to remove, but like really obnoxious for a lot of players to try and remove against anything that's like AP3 or higher. So those las cannons or those melta guns that we would oftentimes have like a 5 or 6-up save against, depending on like the state of cover. Now we're getting those 4-up invul saves against. It does make it very obnoxious to deal with. However, it doesn't do nearly as much damage because the Hellhounds and the Vanquishers, like they're kind of nice together. The 2 into 5 Rough Riders and the 1 Scout Sentinel kind of in an interesting spot overall. I don't know. I'm just looking at this one. I'm not super excited about this list, but the fact that Florian took it to Nations Cup is very interesting to me. Uh, Further context about this, it went 20-0 into Chaos Knights, and then immediately after went 4-16 into Chaos Knights, 7-13 into Gene Sailor Cults, 10-10 into Ultras, and then a 13-7 into Custodes. So it doesn't. I don't know. This one feels like a very odd list. It doesn't feel like it was potentially used as well as it could have been, but I'm not seeing like what this was built to fight for a team's context. So really interesting list coming out. Still in that same category of two Dorns, two or more Vanquishers, and then just stuff in the midboard. But that's the biggest thing. It's like I don't feel like this brawls nearly as well for the midboard as some of the other lists we've taken a look at. Okay, after that, let's go ahead and come back over to the United States. We had another big event. So there was the Tennessee Elite Open, which was 8-man teams. We had Nations Cup, Alpine Cup, which was over in probably Austria, I believe, which was played on WTC terrain. And then we had the Las Vegas Teams Tournament. So both the Tennessee Elite Open and Las Vegas were played on NTL style pairings. So if you've played teams before and are used to the WTC style pairings, everybody plays the same mission and you only change what map you're playing. For NTL style pairings, the defender will pick which Games Workshop terrain map or which Games Workshop terrain board you're playing on. But then once you know the board, the attacker gets to pick between one of two missions, depending on which board they're on. So in theory, you could play the same map and the same mission uh, every single round of the event, which some people like, some people don't. Just keep that in mind as we take a look at the Las Vegas lists. The first one, Isaac Terada. I contributed to this list when I was talking to him. This was something that I know Ben Jurek was looking at something similar for a little while, and then I'm playing something of a similar style to what Isaac is playing at an upcoming teams event, but this is Isaac's version of it. You still have the two Dorns, you have the three Vanquishers, you have an extra Lehman Russ Exterminator, 2 units of 10 Catachin, 3 Chimeras, 3 units of Kazarkin. The Caden Command Squad sits by itself. This was a recommendation supposedly by Nemo, Wesley St. Hines, where you use that to stand on your home objective instead of a unit of 10 Cadians, so that you can target the Caden Command Squad with the Snap to It order in order to double order Kazarkin as they hop out of transports. The Slime Marbo, because you were playing on a lot of open boards, Slime Marbo does give you that one infiltrate piece, as well as also gives you access to that lone operative, because you're playing on these open boards. You want to shoot your opponent off objectives and don't want to get shot off yourself, and Slime Marbo does help with that quite a bit. Otherwise, this is a very violent list. You are going to play on an open board, and you are going to shoot your opponent as effectively as possible. Isaac, one of these players, great dude, but also known meta chaser, where he will hop between all kinds of different armies. And I know for a fact, because I was talking to him, he ended up switching to this army like the day before list lock. Which says something about how powerful this army is, that you can just do that. He ended up getting a 20-0 into Tyranids, 15-5 into Ultramarines, 14-6 into Scintillating, 20-0 into Kaoyan, and 16-4 into Khazra Hushidar Ultramarines at the event. And that last one was into Art of War. I don't know who his other opponents were, but otherwise, still 5 wins, no losses, and his smallest win was a 14-6 into Scintillating Legion. So really good stuff overall from Isaac. Next, another player who's playing a similar style of list. This one coming out from Ben Jurek. Another player who has been hopping between Orcs and Thousand Suns quite a bit, but has also been playing Guard from time to time. You will see a lot of similarities between this and the one that Isaac was playing. It's a Cadian Command Squad, Lord Solar, 10 Cadians, 10 Catachin, 2 Chimeras, 1 unit of 5 Rough Riders, 3 units of Kazarkin, 1 Exterminator, 3 Luminous Vanquishers, and 2 Rogaldorn Battle Tanks. So one of the big things about this one, again, of course, is you have Lord Solar. Lord Solar has 4 squadron orders, and then you have no additional squadron orders in the list. So you have the 4 Lehman Russes, 2 Rogaldorns, and the 2 Chimeras. All of the Russes and Dorns really want that order, and then the Chimera likes that order. So you have 4 orders plus snap to it a couple of times in order to go between 8 things that like the orders. So it is a little bit interesting that way. But otherwise, very similar. You only have the 2 Chimera for the Khazarkin to just go run at your opponent and just take a ton of early board control that way. But this one does have a little bit more resiliency because the Rogaldorn battle tanks do have those blanks. Overall, Ben Jurek going 4-1 at this event, getting a 13-7 into Dark Angels, a 15-5 into Grey Knights, an 8-12, I believe that was into John Lennon's Guard, and the 17-3 into Votan, and then a 20-0 against Taylor John Morton's Guard, which we will take a look at later in this video. Okay, so we had all of those, 2 Dorns, 2 or 3 Vanquishers, a lot of people doing very well. It's a very established archetype. If you are interested in doing that, if you want to do it, I like 2 Rogaldorn Commanders and 3 Vanquishers, but you could do 1 Rogaldorn Commander, 1 Rogaldorn Battle Tank, and 3 Vanquishers, or you could go with Ben Jurek style with a Lord Solar, but you just have a lot of beef. It's very hard to remove. The next thing that you need to do is you need to make sure you take enough stuff to just like brawl for the midboard. The most common choices are going to be Khazarkin in transports, but you can also use units of 5 Rough Riders, units of 5 Krieg Engineers, units of 5 Death Riders. You can go Scout Sentinels. You can look at Chimeras. You can go with Catachan. You can go with Ogryn. It kind of doesn't matter. Or you can go with the Bullgryn package as well. It kind of doesn't matter. You just need enough stuff to brawl for the midboard. Okay, that was our first category. I have like 4 more categories to show you guys. Next, the next category I want to show you guys is 2 Dorns and 12 or more Bullgryn. So these are the biggest difference between this and some of the lists that I just showed you guys is the fact that they don't have like a bunch of Vanquishers. Most of their range damage is going to be coming from Dorns, and so what you generally do with these after that is you have the Dorns and then you lean into playing for the midboard, whereas the 2 Dorns and 2 Vanquishers are going to be leaning on the amount of damage that they can do with the Vanquishers and the Dorns altogether. So keep that in mind. They still play fairly similarly overall. But the first one I want to show you guys is another singles list coming out from Trevor Riddell, Discord, I believe he's a Discord member as well. This was at Grand Onslaught 11, where it was a bit of a submarine because he lost his first round, but Trevor coming out with a 4-1. I had a Caning Command Squad, a Commissar with Abhuman Detail, Silent Command Squad, Ogryn Bodyguard, and Rogaldorn Commander. The Ogryn Bodyguard looks like it's going to be attached to the Caning Command Squad. So it could run around just as we've looked at before with the Cadian Castellan, 20 Cadians, Cadian Command Squad. You can attach an Ogre Bodyguard to it, which makes it more resilient. And it's kind of like that Russian nesting doll, right? You kill the Cadians and suddenly you have this T6 unit pop out of it. 2 Chimeras, 1... There's no way it's 2 Chimeras, 3 Thorax. Let me double check that. At a lot of lists, you're going to have to excuse. Okay, yeah, 2 Chimeras, 1 Thorax. There's not the 2 extra Thoraxes. Then we have 2 units of 6 Bullgryn, 3 units of Khazarkin, 1 unit of 5 Scions, 1 unit of 10 Rough Riders, and then the Rogaldorn Battle Tank to be that second Dorn. Yeah, there's a lot of brawling in this, right? You have the 2 units of 6 Bullgryn with the Abhuman Detail hanging out with the Commissar, the Cadian Command Squad, the 10 Cadians, the Ogryn Bodyguard. The 2 units of 6 Bullgryn going to be running around, taking control of the middle of the board. Khazarkin and Chimeras and Thoraxes going to go fight things. Then you have 2 potentially rapid Ingress threats. You could have the 10 Rough Riders either start on the board or start off the board. And then you have the Scions, which are going to be deep striking at some point. You just have a lot of control over the center with these kinds of lists. You're going to be generally a little bit stronger on primary this way because you're going to be denying your opponent, and this tends to want to play 5 turns in ways that the 2 Dorns and 2 or 3 Vanquishers list prefer not to. They want to just kill their opponent and then score relatively freely in the last couple of turns, whereas these kind of lists are going to be more comfortable playing throughout the course of the game, not necessarily caring super hard about the all-in, because they have the Bullgryn, they have the Khazarkin, they have lots of tools where if your opponent gives you an option, you can go kill them, but this one is generally going to be spending a lot more of the game trying to move your opponent's pieces into spots where we can shoot back at them later. Trevor ended up getting a loss into Custodes and then beat Tyranids, Dark Angels, Salamanders, and then Eldar for the final game, getting a 4-1. So congratulations to Trevor. Next, at Fight for the Fallen, we have a third place from Stephen Henry, and Stephen is not a player I have seen before playing guard. I took a little bit of research. He is normally a Custodes player coming out. So most of the people who have been like 17, 1800 plus players coming in to play guard have not had immediate success, but Steven does, getting a 4-1, only losing in the 5th round with Grizzled Company. He has a Cadian command squad with the Laud Hailer. Doesn't do anything at all because you have the Master Vox that you cannot replace in the unit, so 10 extra points being spent. A Commissar with Abhuman Detail, Gonskos, Lord Solar, 10 Cadians. So what this means is that Lord Solar can either run around by himself or the Commissar can attach to the Cadians, but you're generally going to be attaching Lord Solar to the Cadians in order to order the Dorns as they run around, and then the Commissar is almost definitely going to be attaching to one of the units of 6 Bullgryn. 2 units of 2 Toraxes, 2 units of 5 Rough Riders, 2 units of 6 Bullgryn, 2 units of Khazarkin, a Luminous Demolisher, and then 2 Rogaldorn Battle Tanks. So there's not a whole lot of functional difference between the way that Trevor and Steven's lists are actually going to be playing. The Commissar being attached to the Bullgryn in most of the games does make it a little bit more vulnerable to getting precisioned out. And in those games, you do have the option to attach the Commissar to the Cadian command squad, or you can, and you can have Lord Solar run around, but then that leaves your Dorns and your Luminous Demolisher in kind of an awkward situation where they have to stand in places where Lord Solar can get to. I've done it. I used to do this fairly often during the index, but it doesn't feel like it makes as much sense in this kind of list. So you generally are going to be having the Commissar with the Bullgryn in this. Again, Steven, normally a Custodes player, but this time he beats Necrons, Ultramarines, Emperor's Children, World Eaters, and then loses in the last round to Necron. So overall, really good stuff coming out from Stephen Henry on the first time that I've seen him playing on guard. Going to be brawling for the middle on this one, and then having plenty of damage to follow it up. All right, next, going back to some team stuff, we have at the Nordic Tabletop Showdown, Martin, I think it's Martin Bremer Nielsen. It's going to be my guess for this. Going to be playing Grizzled Company at the Nordic Tabletop Showdown, like we said. He's got a Cadian command squad, Commissar with Abhuman Detail, 2 Rogaldorn commanders, 1 unit of 10 Cadians, or a second unit of 10 Cadians, 2 units of 10 Krieg, 2 units of 6 Bullgryn, a Hellhound, 2 Luminous Battle Tanks, and a Luminous Exterminator. So a little bit of an interesting choice here. A lot of people have been fairly down on the Luminous Exterminator for the same reason they've been relatively low on the Scout Sentinel. The Luminous Battle Tank, of course, already rerolls hits of 1 all the time. However, I think it's being a little bit overlooked because the Luminous Battle Tank, of course, gets the full rerolls on an objective, and then the reroll 1s to wound on objectives. So full rerolls to hit, reroll 1s to wound does make it very, very effective at killing anything on an objective. So interesting choice there. I believe most of the time the Nordic countries tend to play on WTC, but I also know that some events up there play on their own specific style of terrain. I'm not sure which one this was, but you still have the 2 units of 6 Bullgryn to take a lot of control brawling, and then you have the 10 Cadians and then 2 units of 10 Krieg to just go hang out on objectives, to just go create screens elsewhere. Very interesting style of list coming through. The Hellhound and the Exterminator giving you a lot of access to Ignore's cover. You can Hellhound something, you can strat another thing, and with the Exterminator, you have a lot of ability to pump up your damage with the Rogaldorn Commanders and the Luminous Battle Tanks. There's a very interesting style coming through from Martin. 19-1 into AdMech, 19-1 into Space Wolves, 14-6 into Votann, 10-10 into Chaos Knights, and a 17-3 into World Eaters. So good job overall to Martin. 4 wins, no losses, and 1 draw. Going back to Nations Cup, Alcan Cup, we have Nassim Fouchain coming through. This is something that he's been playing. This is what he's been playing for a year and a half, but this time it's in Grizzled Company. I believe the list that he played at 2025 WTC is this, basically this. Cadian Command Squad, Commissar, Abhuman Detail, Scion Command Squad, 2 Rogaldorn Commanders, a unit of 10 Cadians, 2 units of 10 Catachans, 3 Chimeras, 6 Bullgryn, or 2 units of 6 Bullgryn, 3 units of Khazarkin, and 1 unit of 5 Scions. And this, looking at this, reminds me of the adage that Nassim said sometime earlier this year, maybe last year, or I guess it would be 2025. The no man's land is the promised land. We must go and take it. And this is a list that brawls for the midboard. You have the 12 Bullgryns, which are going to go punch things to death. The Cadian Command Squad and the Commissar attached to the 10 Cadians. And then you have 2 units of Catachan, 3 units of Kazarkin, 3 Chimeras, and 2 units of 6 Bullgryn that are just going to go fight for the middle, fight for your opponent's natural objective, fight for your own natural objective. You're just going to fight. And Nassim is one of the absolute best in the world at this. He gets a 20 into Eldar, a 20 into Thousand Suns, 13-7 into Necrons, a 17-3 into Scintillating Legion once, and a 20-0 into Scintillating Legion the second time around. One of the nice things in Scintillating Legion is, of course, going to be the mortal wounds from those Melta Mines and grenades in order to make sure that things like pink and blue horrors don't split, and also that you don't need to deal with the flux tokens if they just die to mortal wounds and they don't get to make the saves with the flux tokens. Nassim coming through, 5 wins, no losses. His 3 20s, a 17, and a 13. Very good stuff overall. Just brawling for the midboard. Okay, next we have another fantastic player coming out, John Lennon of Art of War fame, one of the best players in the world, one of the best players to play. I was going to say League of Legends because that's what I did for so much of my life. But for Warhammer 40k, John Lennon at the Las Vegas Teams Tournament, 2 Cadian Command Squads, 1 Commissar with IP Mini Detail, a Scion Command Squad, 1 Ogryn Bodyguard, a Rogaldorn Commander, 10 Cadians, and 10 Krieg. So, of course, you have the Cadian Command Squad with the Ogryn Bodyguard, and then you have the Cadian Command Squad attached to the Commissar and the Cadians. Excuse me. 2 units of 10 Rough Riders, 3 units of 6 Bullgryn, 1 unit of 5 Krieg Engineers, 1 unit of 5 Scions, and 1 Rogaldorn Battle Tank. So you don't have a ton of things for the Rogaldorn Commander to be ordering, but the one thing that you do have to do here is make sure that your Rogaldorn Commander and the Rogaldorn Battle Tank are within range, either in the command phase or at the end of the movement phase, so that the Rogaldorn Commander can order the Rogaldorn Battle Tank and make sure you have all of those reroll ones. It's a little bit more difficult, but if there's anybody that I would trust to have this kind of style of play, it is going to be John Lennon. I remember when I looked at this list before the event actually starts, this looks like a list that really wants to go fight Marines, right? A lot of Marines are damage 2, so the -1 damage on the Bullgryn, really, really big deal. And then the Rough Riders, pretty good at killing Victrix. I believe they were still playing with 4-win Victrix at Las Vegas, and before Necrons came out. But then other than that, it doesn't, you can throw out Bullgryn and they are going to be resilient to shooting. You're not likely to kill a full unit of Bullgryn in one activation of any kind of shooting. And really important thing to note here is even a double Gatling, Despoiler, and Chaos Knights with sustained is only going to kill 2 or 3 Bullgryn most of the time. So you can use them to be baits for your Rogaldorns, which makes a lot of sense. You have the units of Rough Riders, which can start either on the board or off the board to rapid ingress or to charge things, countercharge things in the game. And then the Scions, of course, going to be in reserve. Not a very subtle list coming out from John Lennon. And he didn't necessarily get a lot of the matchups that I was kind of expecting him to want to play, but it was a 20-0 into Necrons, a 10-10 into a Guard Mirror, a 14-6 into Genestealers, a 14-6 into Ultramarines, and then a 12-8 into Ultramarines. So a couple times actually just coming in and getting, small to medium wins going up against a bunch of Victrix Guard. Overall, though, good stuff from John Lennon. I don't remember if it was his team or the other Art of War team that ended up winning the Las Vegas Teams Tournament, but it was either John Lennon or Ben Jurek, one of them, and one of them won on tiebreakers. I don't remember which one it was. Okay, next, I'm going to show you guys a couple of lists that have 20 or more horses. I know we've already shown you some lists that had 20 or more horses, but these didn't fall into either of those categories before. The first one I'm going to show you guys is Anthony Keane coming out at Nottingham. So Anthony coming through, again, before we talk about it, Nottingham was, of course, played on UKTC terrain. They recently made some changes where there are more footprints on the board that don't have any actual walls attached to them, so they are just going to be blocking line of sight, but easy to move over. If you play on GW terrain, it's a lot like the blue terrain pieces where you can just run over them. They're not movement blocking at all. Anyway, Anthony getting a 4-1, another bit of a submarine because they lost the first round. But it's a Cadian Command Squad, a Commissar with Ad Human Detail, Gaunt's Ghost, a Silent Command Squad, 2 Rogal Dorn Commanders, an Engine Seer, Ursula Creed, a unit of 10 Cadians, a unit of 10 Catachan, a Chimera, a Taurox, 2 units of 10 Rough Riders, 1 unit of 6 Bullgryn, 2 units of Khazarkin, and 5 Scions. The only reason why this doesn't go into like the grab bag of the rest of the list I'm going to show you guys towards the end is because it has the 20 horses, and horses are cool, but this is like honestly, this list and the one that I showed you from like John Lennon and Nassim, this is the same thing. To be honest, it's the 2 Dorns, and then you just have stuff that brawls for the midboard. That's about it. Don't really have a whole lot of new things. The Engine Seer, I will say, I don't think Engine Seers are very good in Grizzled, or rather, like, I don't even think they were that good in combined. Like, they're okay. But the bigger thing is, if you are getting shot at by, like, las cannons, which are AP3, and you're in cover, you're saving on a 4, which is the same as, like, the Engine Seer anyway, and then against one target, we can Armor of Contempt. So against those like las cannons, we can be saving on 3s, and then against Meltas, we can be saving on 4s. So our opponents really need access to AP5 or like AP4 ignores cover for the Engine Seer's like save part of it to really come into play. So you really need to have more of a plan for the Engine Seer than just I'm going to throw a 4-up invul on my Rogal Dorn. Part of it can be like, I'm going to throw a 4-up invul on the Chimera, just as we were talking about with like the Hellhounds before. A Chimera T9 3-up 4-up invul is really obnoxious to remove, simply because your opponent does not know how much they're going to need to devote to actually killing it. So sometimes they'll just end up with a Chimera where you previously were not going to. Anthony ends up losing against Tyranids in the first round before beating Ultramarines, Chaos Knights, Tyranids, and Orcs. So congratulations, Anthony. I don't believe I've seen his name pop up in these videos before, but welcome to the Cool Club. Next, we have Tom Martin, and I didn't ask his permission. I'm just going to throw this photo of him into the internet anyway because it is funny. This was at Vancouver Wargaming. It was a relatively small event, so you might not see this one pop up in like StatCheck or other stat websites that track this kind of stuff. Tom, I played against him, lovely chap, going 5-0, getting a GT win with the Guard immediately after. He has been playing like a lot of like Chaos recently, but when Grizzle came out, he did hop back over, and I believe he's also going to be playing some kind of Guard at the Teams event that I'm going to. Cadian Command Squad, Commissar, Ab Human Detail, Gaunt's Ghost, Silent Command Squad, Rogal Dorn Commander, Ursula Creed, 10 Cadians, 1 Chimera, 3 Tauroxes, 2 units of 10 Rough Riders, 6 Bullgryn, a unit of Catachan Mortars, 3 units of Khazarkin, a unit of Krieg Engineers, and then 5 Scions. This is, like, we were already looking at, like, this list, and this list, and this list that are going to be like brawling for the midboard. Tom is taking that in extra little bit because he doesn't have the second Rogal Dorn Commander. He only has the 1. So he's not going to be winning shootouts against a lot of other players. However, he's going to make up for it by just having more stuff in the middle of the board. This is an incredibly mobile version of this list because you have, I'm assuming it's going to be Khazarkin in every Taurox, so you can just go kill things. Rerolling ones to hit, sometimes rerolling ones to wound, and you just have a ton of pressure. I'm guessing that Tom spent most of his games attaching the Commissar to the unit of 6 Bullgryn. If you only have the 1 unit of Bullgryn, it's not as devastating if you get precisioned out, because at that point you are probably going to be swinging back on 2s, reroll 1s anyway for that combat. And then you fall back with the Bullgryn, shoot the things that charged with your Dorn, with your Khazarkin, with whatever, and then you're going to be okay that way. It's more of a one-use missile. Otherwise, just a lot of brawling, a lot of very aggressive play coming out from Tom, I have to imagine, for this one. He ends up beating World Leaders, Emperor's Children, Blood Angels, Ultramarines, and then Custodes in his final round. So congratulations to Tom on the 5-0 in this one, and I'll see you in about a month. Next, Las Vegas Teams Tournament. We are still staying on the 20 or more horses. We have Mike Sanchez, a name I haven't seen before. with a bit of an interesting list. It is going to be a Cadian command squad with a Spec Ops veteran. Um, in general, I'm not super big on the Spec Ops veteran because it's just worse than Take Aim most of the time. So it feels like a points filler. I would have gone with Aquilin Eye here if I had to take like an enhancement and I couldn't make any other changes to the list, because you can do it on the Kazarkin, and then you can be like AP4 Plasma, AP5 Melta, which is very cool. But anyway, Cadian Command Squad, Lord Solar, Rogaldorn Commander, 1 unit of 10 Cadians, 1 unit of 10 Catachan, 3 Chimeras, 1 unit of 10 Rough Riders, 2 units of 5 Rough Riders, 3 units of Kazarkin, 5 Rattlings, and 2 Rogaldorn Battle Tanks. This could have gone in a couple of the different categories, but I made this one before I made one of the next categories, so it ends up here. Lots of brawling. You got the 3 Rogaldorns and Lord Solar, so you have plenty of squadron orders to go around between your Rogaldorns and your Chimeras. This is actually one where I think you probably could have considered making the Rogaldorn commander into just a Rogaldorn battle tank because you already have plenty of orders from Lord Solar. So you could order all of the Rogaldorn battle tanks that want it, but it does give you a little bit of freedom with the Rogaldorn commander to be elsewhere on the board. Lots of brawling for the mid board, lots of tools that way. Again, this falls into a lot of other things we've talked about before. The only real note here is, of course, the Spec Ops veteran. I don't believe this really does anything for the army. I guess it's kind of funny to make Rough Riders stealth. Can you do that? I actually don't know what the keyword restriction is on it. It might be a regiment keyword. It might be an infantry keyword restriction. I'm not sure. But yeah, I definitely would have made that Aquilin Eye. Other than that, fun list. Mike Sanchez getting a 0 into Plague Legion at the Las Vegas Teams Tournament, a 5 into Mont Katao, an 18 into Eldar, 19 into Orcs, and an 11 into Grey Knights. So 3 wins. I forgot. 3 wins and 2 losses. No draws coming out of this one. All right, next we have Taylor John Morton at the Las Vegas Teams Tournament. Commissar with Abhuman Detail. Krieg Command Squad. I believe he took the Krieg Command Squad specifically because he was under the impression that the Snap to Servo Scribes interaction works in our favor, which I'm not sure how they ruled it at Las Vegas. A Sion Command Squad, 2 Rogaldorn Commanders, Sly Marbo, 10 Catachan, 10 Krieg, which are going to be attached to the Commissar and the Krieg Command Squad, of course. 3 Toraxes, 2 units of 10 Rough Riders, a unit of 6 Bullgryn, 3 Kazarkin, and 5 Scions. Very similar stuff to what we've seen. It's kind of between the one that we saw from Tom Martin and some other lists. Of course, the Kazarkin and Torax is going to be more aggressively positioned on the board because they are going to go try and kill things. So it's less of a brawl, more of like a scalpel style of list coming out from Taylor than we've seen with a couple other people who have been preferring the Chimeras, because the Chimeras are part of the brawl because they actually do damage on their own. Taylor ends up getting a 16-4 into Retaliation Cadre, 11-9 into Scintillating Demons, 6-14 into Crude Hunting Pack, 10-10 into Nids, and then lost 0-20 in a Guard Mirror. I think that one was Ben Jurek. Yeah, that was Ben Jurek. I ended up getting that 20-0 into Taylor. 2 wins, 2 losses, 1 draw. Overall, this feels... I think he was used more as an attacker list, which you generally don't get the same kind of just like raw wins as you would as a defender list. But getting the 6 into Crew and the 0 into Guard ends up asking a little bit more. I guess this is... Yeah, 2 wins, 2 losses, 1 draw. Yeah, cool. Okay. So we've done a couple of categories, right? We had 2 Dorns, 2 Dorns and 2 or more Vanquishers, 2 Dorns and 12 or more Bullgryn, at least 20 horses. Our next category is mini Russes. These lists are just violence. That's basically all they are. They're going to try and outshoot your opponent. You're going to try and just create a lot of space. You're going to try and kill other people on the other side of the board. First one I'm going to show you guys is Jonas Sinclair getting 3rd place at Winter Assault. Very interesting list overall. I believe, this is not the first time that Jonah has done well with data sheets that I think are not very good, which just kind of speaks to, a testament to him as a player overall. Let's go ahead and take a look at his list, though. It is a Cadian Command Squad, Gonskos, a Leman Norse Commander with Aquilin Eye, Lord Solar, 10 Cadians. So you're going to attach Cadians to the Cadian Command Squad on Lord Solar in this one. An artillery team, a unit of Cadian mortars, Never take Cadian Mortars over Catachan Mortars, by the way, because Cadian Mortars, the Overwatch is irrelevant, and then you get the Scout 6 on the Catachan Mortars, so in matchups where you don't care about the mortars, like say you're playing into Chaos Knights, um, they can suddenly be bad Catachan, is basically what the whole argument is there. Unit 5 Ratlings, 2 Luminous Battle Tanks, 3 Luminous Exterminators, a Luminous Vanquisher, and 2 Scout Sentinels. So this is a lot of beef, right? That's Leman Commander and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 additional Leman Russes. So 7 Leman Russes overall. The Aquila Eye is really interesting here. The main thing that makes it really interesting, of course, is the triple exterminator, the 2 Luminous battle tanks. As we were talking about with the battle tanks before, they reroll all hits against targets on objectives, and then reroll ones to wound if they're on objectives. And because they're rerolling all hits, threes rerolling ones and fours rerolling are pretty close in terms of your expected number of hits. And this time you can give it potentially +2 AP between the Exterminator and the Aquila Eye. So you could suddenly have your main cannon be a 10-3-3, rerolling all hits, rerolling ones to wound. And then your Maltas can be like AP6, which is pretty cool. So there's some really cool things that you can do with all of that in combination. If you've seen like older videos about like autocannon spam, this is that, but in Grizzled Company. So just a lot of AP going to targets, a lot of rerolls, just a lot of low AP damage 3 attacks going out. The Lehman Russ Commander, I believe, had an Exterminator autocannon as well, I think. But overall, you do have to keep it a little bit back for a little bit longer, just because if you do lose that and suddenly lose like reroll ones across some of your army, it does kind of hurt. But the other thing is like with the Luminous battle tanks, they aren't as reliant on getting orders in the first place. So a lot of violence coming out from Jonah, just a lot of firepower, a lot of tank, a lot of ability to be aggressive on the board. At Winter Assault, he ends up beating Dark Angels, Custodes, Blood Angels, Dark Angels again, and then he only lost to GSC in his last round, getting third place in a 4-1 overall. So congratulations, Jonah, on another appearance. Next, another player at the Las Vegas Teams Tournament, Richard Kotzart, going 3 wins, no losses, and 2 draws. A Cadian Command Squad, a Luminous Commander, Lord Solar, Rogel Dorn Commander, 10 Cadians, 2 units of Rough Riders, 1 unit of 5 Scions, 2 Hellhounds, an Exterminator, a Punisher, and 2 Vanquishers. I don't really understand this list, to be quite frank with you guys. It's just not that many things is the biggest thing that I look at. You have the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. But they're all like toughness 10, 2-up save. So like, I kind of get it. But it also doesn't have the same kind of like breadth of targets, right? Like if you look at Jonas Sinclair's list, the battle tanks and the exterminators don't really care what they're shooting at, whereas this one, the Vanquishers and the Punishers care a lot more what they're shooting at. They aren't anywhere near as good shooting at like other things, so you have to rely on the Lemur's Exterminator or the Lemur's Commander, the Lemur's Exterminator, and the Rogel Thorn Commander to kind of do that. But it is still this like toughness skew, so you are going to be winning games off of that sometimes anyway. Richard ends up getting a 12-8 into Thousand Suns, an 18-2 into Montka Tau, a 20-0 into Guard, a 10-10 into Blood Angels, and a 10-10 into Bile. A little bit different than what I would have expected. Typically, Guard is very, very good at hunting these marine shapes, these marine matchups, like the 10-10 into Blood Angels and the 10-10 into Creations of Bile Chaos Space Marines. A little bit surprising, but he makes up for it by getting some pretty big wins into Montka and the Guard Mirror. So good stuff overall from Richard Kotzart there. Okay, we have another archetype that I want to show you guys called Doombolt Guard, as coined by Gustavo de Sousa. He really likes naming the kinds of lists that he shares and popularizes. This one, I don't believe he's played this at any events publicly, but he's been talking about it in Discord quite a bit. Doombolt Guard, the whole idea about this is you're going to drown people in mortal wounds. The typical things that you see in Doombolt Guard is you're going to take 3 units of Kazarkin, 2 or 3 units of engineers, oftentimes Nork Deadhog as well, and you're just going to shove your army at your opponent on turn 1 or turn 2, try to kill as much as possible, and then with the amount of damage that you've done, win from there. First person who's done it, Scott McCutcheon, going at Nottingham, going 4-1, losing unfortunately on stream. If you want to watch that game, it is on the UKTC YouTube channel. I might end up doing a breakdown of that video, but it is a Cadian Castellan, Cadian Command Squad, 2 Scion Command Squads, an Ogren Bodyguard, 2 Roldorn Commanders, 20 Cadians, so the Cadian Castellan, the Cadian Command Squad, the Ogren Bodyguard, and the 20 Cadians. As we've talked about, I have a video on that one as well. Unit of 10 Catachan, 2 Chimeras, a Taurox, 3 units of Khazarkin, 3 units of 5 Krieg Engineers, and 2 units of 5 Scions. So it's basically as much elite infantry as you can realistically pack into a list all at the same time. 2 Chimeras and the Taurox just creating a lot of pressure on the board. And then you have the Cadian Castellan, the 20 Cadians, looking for heroics, looking for good overwatches, and the Roldorn Commanders just keeping your opponent honest in the firing lanes. It has a lot of control over the shape of the board because it's relatively fast. All of your infantry is moving 9 if it wants to. A lot of Scout 6, so you do have the ability to Alpha Strike your opponent going first in plenty of games, especially on the UKTC, where the ruins are relatively far towards the edge of like the deployment zones. Scott ends up beating World Eaters Eldar, losing to Scintillating Legion in a 1-point game, beating World Eaters, and then beating Iron Hands in the final game, going 4-1 overall. Yeah, this is just, really big brawl, a lot of pressure being put on the board. You're trying to do a lot of mortal wounds. You're trying to get people with those free grenades, with the melt-a-mines, the remote mines. Just making sure that your opponent runs out of assets really quickly. This is perfectly in line with the way that Gustavo's like to play, and I know, I believe the name of this was like trying to do Gustavo proud, or it's either this one or like another one that we'll look at in a little bit. Another player playing a similar style of list, Philip Koenig. I'm sorry, Philip. I know you're in the Discord, but I don't remember what the 2 dots mean. Cadian Command Squad, Catachan Command Squad, Scion Command Squad, 2 Ogren Bodyguards, Rogal Commander, 10 Cadians, 20 Cadians, 10 Catachan. So no Castellan, interestingly, in this list. 2 Chimeras, 1 Taurox, just as we saw in the Scott McCutcheon list. 3 units of Khazarkin, 3 units of 5 Krieg Engineers, 1 unit of Ratlings, and a Rogal Battle Tank. So turning one of the Roldorn Commanders into the Rogal Battle Tank, taking a little bit extra battle line. I do wonder if like the Ratlings or the Catachan could have been a Castellan instead, and then it would have been very similar to the list that we just saw from Scott McCutcheon. Overall, though, very similar. This was played in a teams context, getting a 19-1 into Necrons, 13-7 into Custodes, 14-6 into another Custodes, 4-16 into Death Guard, and a 14-6 into Sisters. So just a lot of control over the board in general. You have a lot of just raw brawling power, and again, drowning people in mortal wounds. Good stuff. Next, at the Las Vegas Teams Tournament, again, where you pick the board, but then your opponent picks the mission. Jake Nelson, Cadian Command Squad with Aquilin Eye, Gaunt's Ghost, Lord Solar, 10 Cadians, 10 Catachan, 2 Tauroxes, 10 Rough Riders, 3 units of Khazarkin, 2 units of 5 Krieg Engineers, 3 units of Cyclops, and then 3 Rogal Battle Tanks. Yeah, this one has the extra Rogal Battle Tank, or, extra Dorn in it, but not as much, like, reactionary play. You do have the 10 Rough Riders, which can kind of be like the Scions and how they move around. And the other thing is that it's a little bit slower on the board to start, because you only have the 2 Tauroxes for your Khazarkin. This is a little bit more of a, again, more of a scalpel, less of a hammer coming out from Jake. Jake ends up beating 20-0 into Orcs, 16-4 into Custodes, 12-8 into a Guard Mirror, 10-10 into Ultras, and then a 20-0 into World Eaters. Okay, so next, we have a category of armies that have at least 3 Dorns in them. There have definitely been some that I've shown you that have had 3 Dorns in them, but they didn't really belong in any of the other categories, but they do have at least 3 Dorns, which is important. First one, we have Sam Young playing Combined Arms at the Tennessee Elite Open, going 3 wins and 2 losses. It is a Commissar, No Abhumid Detail, because it's the wrong detachment. Gaunt's Ghost, 2 Rogaldorn Commanders, Ursula Creed, 2 units of 10 Cadians, a Chimera, 2 units of 5 Death Riders, 1 unit of Kazarkin, 5 Krieg Engineers, 2 units of 5 Ratlings, 2 Rogaldorn Battle Tanks, and 2 Scout Sentinels. So this is just creating a lot of pressure on the board. You have like your Ratlings to make sure you don't get charged on turn 1, and then you have 4 Rogaldorns and 2 Scout Sentinels. So you're going to be doing a lot of shooting. This to me screams that it is trying to defend either like layout 2 or layout 3 or layout 5, where it is just going to try and stand on an open board and shoot people and do it relatively effectively. I'm playing something vaguely this shape, probably at my next team's event. So a couple interesting things. I would have really liked more Kazarkin in this list, just so you can be a bit more aggressive on the board. Because it does run out of ability to like play the mid board with things that are not Rogaldorns relatively quickly. But either way, Sam going 3 wins, 2 losses, getting a 119 into Tau. What I'm guessing happened is they like first defended like layout 5, which is stupidly open, and then he went second. Is my guess of what that was, because you can't hide, and if the Tau can kill like 2 Rogaldorns, the game ends. Basically instantly, because you do not have enough firepower after that. And because if they go first, they still have all of their Seeker missiles. You fail a couple too many saves, and you just die, which is very possible. A 20-0 into Emperor's Children, 18-2 into Nids, a 5-15 into World Eaters, a bit more curious about what happened in that one, and then a 20-0 into Drukhari. So overall, 3 wins and 2 losses. Another player going at the Las Vegas Teams Tournament. We have Matt Estrada, another player that I haven't seen before. At least I don't think. Maybe I have. Cadian Castellan, Cadian Command Squad, 2 Rogaldorn Commanders, an Engine Seer, 1 unit of 20 Cadians, 1 unit of 10 Cadians, 1 unit of 10 Catachan, 2 Toraxes, 5 Rough Riders, 2 Kazarkin, a Hellhound, a Vanquisher, and a Battle Tank. So 2 Dorns, or 2 Dorn Commanders, 1 Dorn Battle Tank, and a Vanquisher does mean that you're going to outshoot most everything. You have the Toraxes with Kazarkin as your scalpels. You have the 20 Cadians with the Castellan and the Cadian Command Squad. There's an Engine Seer kind of running around. I've said my piece about Engine Seers before, but this is, leaning towards the I'm going to kill them, and then we will go from there, which is always a very strong way to play the game. Matt ends up going 20-0 into Space Wolves, 16-4 into Scintillating Legion, 20-0 into Drukhari, 12-8 into a Guard Mirror, and 12-8 into another Drukhari player. So well done on the 5 wins for Matt. Next, we have Kyle McCord playing with the Florida Monstars, so a mix of players who typically play for Florida Alliance with players who play for Midwest Monstars, all coming out to the Las Vegas Teams Tournament. 5 players. This was Gaunt's Ghost, Scion Command Squad with Laud Hailer, so again, the extra range on the orders, not the most important thing, probably just point filler. Scion Command Squad, 3 Rogaldorn Commanders, an Engine Seer, 10 Cadians, Chimera, Torax, 2 units of 5 Rough Riders, 2 units of Kazarkin, 2 units of 5 Scions, and a Luminous Vanquisher. So a lot of very similar stuff coming over here. So 2 Commanders and a Dorn Battle Tank, where this is 3 Dorn Commanders, 2 Torax with Kazarkin, a Chimera and a Torax with Kazarkin, 1 Vanquisher, no Scions, but instead going to be the Cadian Castellan brick, whereas this one's going to have the 2 units of Scions. Very similar stuff coming out overall in terms of how they generally play. Kyle ends up getting a 13-7 into Death Guard, a 10-10 into the Guard Mirror, a 9-11 into Nid, so looks like a 3-1-1 instead of a 3-0-2, 17-3 into Custodes, and a 12-8 into Scintillating Legion. Okay, the rest of these, I didn't have obvious categories to put them in, so we're going to just go over them individually as we get through. First one, I'm going to butcher this name, and I'm sorry. I'm going to go with Kieran. It's going to be my guess, Kieran Heyman, 4-1 at the 40k Brawl Beachhead. It is a Cadian Command Squad, a Commissar with Abhuman Detail, Gaunt's Ghost, Lord Solar, Scion Command Squad, Engine Seer, 10 Cadians, 2 Chimeras, 10 Rough Riders, 6 Bullgryn, 2 Kazarkin, 5 Ratlings, 5 Scions, 2 Rogaldorn Battle Tanks, and, interestingly, an Eversor Assassin. I don't think I've seen this go 4-1 in basically any list in a long time. It's not a assassin that you tend to see. Typically, if people are going to be playing assassins, it is still going to be that Calidus, especially now when there's a lot of like fight on death and armor of contempt running around in order to try and limit your opponent's ability to do that. This was, again, a little bit of a submarine because they did lose their first round and then win the 4 after that. So opponents a little bit easier if you lose your first round in general. And I'm sure you can kind of see why I struggle to like put this in a category because it's, it's kind of like a Noah's Ark list. You just take one or two of everything. You have the 2 Kazarkin, 2 battle tanks, 2 chimeras, and then everything else is a one of. Uh, you know, just a lot of tools. You play the midboard well. You have some tanks. It does good stuff. He ended up losing to Dark Angels in round 1 and then beat Chaos Knights, Orcs, Imperial Knights, and Death Guard. So congratulations to Kieran on the 4-1 at the 40k Brawl. Next, we have Mark Layfield, somebody who seems to be going to their first tournament ever, going 4-1, or at least their first GT, because the fact that they do not have an ELO leading up to this. It was a Cadian Command Squad, a Commissar. Did he not have Abhuman Detail? Hold on, let me double check. Maybe I missed that. Mark Layfield. He does have Abhuman Detail, so I just forgot to put it in the thing. Gaunt's Ghost, Scion Command Squad, Rogaldorn Commander, 10 Cadians, 10 Catachan, Chimera, Taurox, 10 Rough Riders, 2 units of 6 Bullgryn, 2 units of Kazarkin, 5 Scions, an Exterminator, and a Vanquisher. So again, a little bit of a grab bag. It didn't go into the 2 Dorns and 12 more Bullgryn because it only had 1 Dorn. Instead, it had a Exterminator and a Vanquisher. Again, just kind of a grab bag of good things. Don't really know how much more there is to say. We're also over an hour into this video, so I'm getting a little bit tired, guys. I've been talking about this for quite a bit, and a lot of them are kind of the same in a lot of different ways. But this one, a 4-1, a loss into Ultramarines to start it off, and then beating Black Templars, Ultramarines, World Leaders, and Necrons to go 4-1. So congratulations at what seems to be your first GT mark, going 4-1 there at Nottingham. Not a bad shout at all. Next, we have Tyler Logan at Grand Onslaught 11. Getting a loss in their 4th round, so a bit harder of a path than you would generally expect from someone who loses their first round. It is a Cadian Command Squad, an Aquilin Eye, Gaunt's Ghost, Scion Command Squad, Rogaldorn Commander, Ursula Creed, 10 Cadians, 2 units of 10 Catachan, 2 units of 20 Krieg. So a bit of an older style of list coming out with that. 2 Tauroxes, 10 Rough Riders, 2 units of Kazarkin, 5 Scions, and a Rogaldorn Battle Tank. Yeah, this is kind of flooding the board with cheap stuff. You have the 2 units of 20 Krieg, which are relatively annoying to remove. You can order them both take cover, and so you can have one go stand on your natural, one go attempt to do annoying things in the middle of the board, and then you have just a lot of stuff after that to go annoy your opponent's side of the board. You have a lot of firepower with the Rogaldorns, and this is kind of like I mentioned, a style that we saw quite a bit more when the Krieg were 130 points for 20 instead of 145. But otherwise, still looking quite good. I believe Tyler is also a member of the Discord, so hello, Tyler. Ends up losing to Grey Knights in round 4 against David Ozawa, one of the best Grey Knight players in the United States, but beats Necrons, Drukhari, Tau, and Drukhari, other than that. So well done to Tyler on making it in. Green Guard Gang coming through. Next, another player at the same event, we have Alec Huffman going 4-1, also losing in the 4th round. Catachan Command Squad, Commissar with Abhuman Detail, Gaunt's Ghost, 2 Rogaldorn Commanders, Sly Marbo, 2 units of 20 Catachan. Fascinating. We'll talk about that more in a sec. 2 units of Tauroxes, 2 units of 5 Rough Riders, 6 Bullgryn, a Fugald Ordnance Battery, 2 units of Kazarkin, and 6 Ogryn. So that's really interesting. This list has some pieces that I don't really understand, to be entirely honest. The 6 Ogryn, they are relatively cheap. They do decent damage. And you have the Commissar to order them. But the 20 Catachan, like the 2 units of 20 Catachan are the ones that are really interesting to me, because one of them probably going to be attached to the Commissar, so they don't have Scout, at which point I very rapidly go, but what if this was Cadians, which have more damage and also have the sticky, so, we can't just get shot off of our home objective. And they have, it's just worse firepower. So I don't really understand I understand like one of the Catachan bricks, kind of. I don't understand the second Catachan brick. Um, but then the 20 Catachan does just, it's a lot of bodies. You can create that line kind of across the middle of the board, and then use the rest of your army to just create roadblocks for your tanks and play the rest of the midboard that way. Field Ordnance Battery, again, very interesting between the Field Ordnance Battery and the 20 Catachan, one of which I guess you have to attach the Commissar to the Bullgryn unit for the Catachan to make sense, because with the Catachan Command Squad and the 20 Catachan, you still have the Scout 6. But, like, I don't think Assault is very valuable on this unit because it doesn't have guns that you care about. You have, like, 401 flamers, and then whatever you put in the Catachan Command Squad. So, like, it's like a plasma gun, a heavy flamer, a normal flamer, something like that, which is not very impressive. I don't know. It's a very interesting thing coming out from Alec. The rest of the list makes enough sense to me to go through. You still have a lot of stuff that can play the midboard. Field Ordnance Battery, kind of annoying. You have the Shadow Legion. Alec ended up beating Shadow Legion, Space Wolves, Tyranids, losing to Plague Legion, and then beating Blood Angels. Plague Legion showing up a second time. I believe it was at the same event. Let me take a look before I just say that confidently and incorrectly. No, I guess one of them. Where's the other Plague Legion? Other Plague Legion was Mike Sanchez at Las Vegas Teams Tournament. So 2 losses to Plague Legion. I don't really expect this army. I saw somebody talking about it in one of the Discords. I don't really expect that you're going to see a lot of people moving to this army if they weren't already playing it, just because it doesn't have great matchups into the meta in general. It just happens to be good into Guard, but it doesn't really beat up Catan very well. It doesn't really beat up Victrix Guard very well. So it's one of those things that like maybe shows up in teams, or if you already have like a Plague Legion player in your local area, you might have to deal with it. Okay. Last list. I have one more list. Bryce Watson asked for a shout out the last time he went 4-1 and then lost his 6th round, so he didn't actually show up in the video. This time, Bryce Watson showing up. This one was also on stream. If you want to watch this one, it is round 1 of Wargames Live. Joe was not commentating for most of this game because he was actually playing at the event, but Bryce going 4-1 with a Cadian Castellan, Cadian Command Squad, 2 Scion Command Squads, Nork Deadog, 2 Rogaldorn Commanders, 1 unit of 20 Cadians, 1 unit of 10 Cadians, 3 Chimeras, 2 Rough Riders, 3 units of Khazarkin, 1 unit of 10 Scions, 1 unit of 5 Scions. And I'm not going to lie, this list I could see myself just playing. This one is very much up my style. Nork Deadog coming in to go punch things to death. But other than that, it is going to be brawling for the board. You have some rapid tools between the Rough Riders to move around on the board relatively quickly. The Cadian Castellan brick going to be very annoying for our opponent to remove. And then you have the unit of 5+10 Scions to just do something on the board, and then another unit of 5+5 Scions to also be obnoxious on the board. So a lot of pressure there. Something that you could consider doing here if you aren't a Nork fan is you could downgrade Nork to just an Ogre Bodyguard, and then you could put like Aquila and I on either a Rogaldorn Commander for your Chimeras or to a Scion Commander so that you can drop both Scion bricks in with the +1 AP order and first rank fire, second rank fire, and just kill things. Aquila and I take aim, or Aquila and I first rank fire, second rank fire, and ignores cover Scions. On average, will just kill a brick of 6 Victrix, even through like Armor of Contempt, pretty consistently. So something to just think about as an alternative. Either way, Bryce ends up losing to Votan in his first round, kind of getting wrecked by an 11-inch charge where he lost way more pieces than he was expecting. And then beating Space Wolves, Deathwatch, Necrons, and Tau. Okay. All right, gamers. We went through a ton of lists. I tried to group them in ways that are relatively useful. There's probably some other categories I could have made, or maybe some other small things that we could have done. But one of the big things that I kind of want to reiterate to you right now is that we are Guard super, super powerful. We are, if not the best army in the game, we are absolutely in the top 3. The only other armies that are even like kind of at our power level are Necrons and Ultramarines. Everything else we are better than. So we are in an interesting position right now where I was describing this to one of my friends. I don't know if what I've just shown you with the number of different builds that we have is meaningful diversity. Because it is still, if you like look at these, I didn't do this math, but it's basically like the top 20 data sheets, right? You take Kazarkin, Chimera, Taurox, Scion Command Squad, Rough Riders, Death Riders, Chimera, Rogaldorn Commander, Rogaldorn Battle Tank, Levinor's Vanquisher, Levinor's Exterminator, um, Cadian Command Squad, 20 Cadians, 10 Cadians, 10 Catachan, Lord Solar, Ursula Creed, like Lehman Russ. I don't know if I already said the Lehman Russes, but like you just take those and you just like put them in a blender, and whatever pops out is going. Oh, 6 Bullgryn, Commissar with Abhuman Detail. Like you put all of that in a blender, and whatever it spits out is going to be good enough. So just kind of keep that in mind. Basically, anything that you want to play right now, you can, because the army is just so consistent, so good at whatever. So what I would recommend is if you are in a position where you think you are trying to win your local RTTs or your local GTs, look at the meta, right? Think about what do you want to play, how do you want to play the game, do that, and then take your last like 200 points and be like, okay, but the other best player at this event is playing this army, so I'm going to take this piece which is good against him. And that's basically like how list building is going to work for a little bit. You can kind of do whatever you want. Just remember, we are very good. We are very, very good. So do what makes you happy and do what gives you the best odds of winning against your local meta, because we can get away with just about everything. This has been our longest video by a large margin. We are pulling up on an hour and a half, so thank you so much for tuning in. Before I let you guys go here, I do want to let you guys know I am open for coaching again. I have more time in my schedule right around now. So if you are interested in learning more about Grizzled Company from me specifically, or you just want to talk about how to prepare for an upcoming game, or you recently played a TTS game that you want to go over, let me know. Send me a message on Discord or send an email to this account at joshi40k@gmail.com. If any of that interests you, let me know and we can go ahead and talk about it from there. For now, though, thank you guys so much for tuning in to this hour and a half long meta update, and we'll see you guys all next time. Bye-bye.